Hello,
Hello.
everyone, and welcome. Welcome back to many of you. This is Tony Fleischman with ISE, and I'll be joined today by Charles Hood, my esteemed coworker and the guy leading these sessions,
Hello.
specifically focused on Infor OS. If you've attended the last two sessions, a lot of that content had been presented at the InPower conference in 2023. Today, we'll be going a few steps beyond that into some of the advanced topics around Infor OS, specific application, you name it. So focused on wrapping up the three-part series here. Some logistics for today. If you didn't attend the last two sessions, no worries. We will be posting the links for those two sessions in the Q&A tab. So certainly can go and get those. And anyone who is attending or who registered for this event will also get a link for this third event. So we will have everyone muted, but you can log questions in either the Q&A or the chat function, and we'll get those questions answered as we go through the topics, or at the end of the event. We'll have time again at the end. We had great attendance in the last two events, seeing more of that activity coming into this third event. So really happy to have that and really happy to have all the interactions. MJ from Infor is also joining us today to help us if we get into some of the deeper discussions. So as I mentioned, advanced functions, pending functions, those types of things. And just really happy to be ready for this final event. So Charles, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Welcome, everyone. And I'm just humbled by the attendance we've been having here. All right, so this is session 3 of our 3-part webinar, and our theme was launch into 2024 with Infor OS. The sub-theme was walk, run, fly. So my hope is that we did get off the ground and pick up some speed over the first 2 sessions, and that we moved even fast enough that we achieved liftoff. So today we are indeed going to be flying. It's going to be some real cutting edge stuff. So I'm really excited to bring you the topics today. And our subplot here is always the same, using the Infor operating services, or Infor OS, to make manufacturing organizations more competitive, collaborative, and connected. So let's get started here. Here's the agenda for today. We'll start with a review of some important issues from last time, and then we'll get into some of this really great new stuff. And then, of course, we'll also leave plenty of time, hopefully, for Q&A. And I hope to have a little more Q&A time than we did last time, more like the first session. There's kind of a rainbow presentation of my agenda, and so I'm going to get right into it here. So review of session 2. All right, so I'm not going to do a point-by-point review like I did last time when I reviewed session 1. There are a couple points, though, that I really want to bring out that were a little bit rushed at the end. First of all, Documentation Central. If you're not used to Documentation Central, you really need to. You owe it to yourself. In our case, there's this. You go to the main screen. Of course, this is English-based documentation with the EN, and it's even the US version of English. So sorry, MJ, but it's the American English. But you click on the technology platform button, and then you will see like a pop-up will show up under the technology platform, like at the top of my screen, and you have all these particular subtopics. Of course, Infor OS is the one we're interested in now, but notice the other really nice elements of the tech stack are included here. For example, I've barely touched on the Internet of Things, the IoT. There's a lot there. It's just trying to present Infor OS in 3 sessions is like trying to drink the ocean. You just can't do it. There's so much out there. But I suspect we'll be focused on Infor OS, and then you'll see a page like on the bottom. You'll have the available versions, and then you'll have links. And some of these links are to actually libraries. They're like PDF document libraries where there's many documents within the library. So I did want you to see that. And real quickly, and again, if you're not familiar with Documentation Central, you owe it to yourself. And if you're wondering where the ERPs live, there is an ERP and Finance tab as well. Here's the technology platform that I was talking about. ERPs again here. XA, System 21, LX, so you can easily just go into one of those. For example, you can come here and take a look at this list, and then, hey, if you want to learn where the service pack apply instructions are, for different R10. There they all are. So a lot of documentation. Click on the appropriate links and you should be all set. Okay, now also Infor very interestingly, Infor got a facelift this past weekend, so caught me even by surprise. But you want to follow this particular link here that I have there for the training catalog. This is the most useful way I've found to navigate the new look and feel. I believe the course content's all the same. It's just there's a much better way to access it all now. So you want to follow this link. There'll be these little boxes that you'll see. Assuming you want Infor OS, you then click on View Course Catalog. They'll bring you up to a kind of an Infor OS course catalog. I recommend you start with the self-directed learning, the SDL courses. As far as I can tell, those are all free, which is the nice price, obviously. Instructor-led training typically is fee-based. I've taken a few of those over the years. There's definitely a fee associated with them. But the self-directed learning, at least the ones I've been through so far for Infor OS, are free. There are training guides you can download and all that kind of stuff. So that's what you want to do. Here's the URL, eduportal.infor.com training catalog. And then you want to find the particular track that you're interested in and go from there. So I wanted to make sure you knew about that. I really like what they've done with Infor IDM security. I did not want to give the impression last week especially when I was using Infor Go and the IDM mobile app. Yeah, there was a lot I could do from the mobile app just because Infor Go is a great mobile app, and then the mobile environment allowed me to email and to print out because I could talk to my printer, all that kind of stuff. I could share it in different modes, but I did not want to imply that just anybody can get to any document. That is not true in the least. Matter of fact, IDM has very robust and very strict security. It definitely goes beyond the Infor OS user management and the security roles that are set up in Infor OS. So IDM has this thing called Access Control List, or ACLs. I think we all are familiar with the acronym ACL, especially with being like Super Bowl season. You don't want your star player to injure their ACL, but this is a different ACL. These are access control lists, and they control the actions that various users can perform on objects. And of course, the main thing in IDM for an object is the documents. So a couple examples here real quickly. An AAP clerk can be granted the rights to read an invoice document in IDM. A sales rep may be able to add sales order forms in IDM, order acknowledgements, that kind of thing. So they may be authorized to do that. But the ACLs are even more flexible than that. And this is like the infomercial, but wait, there's more. So it's not just who can do what to what documents. You can also set up an ACL rule based upon document attributes. So for example, in my third bullet point there, you can limit access to invoices where the value in the amount attribute is over 500. So only certain people can see, the real top dollar invoices. So the ACL rules are very, very granular. And you can really have very tight control over who can see what documents and who can check in, check out, change, read, all that kind of archive, delete, etc. Okay, and lastly, why would we want to publish our ERP records, be they XA, LX, or System 21 in Infor OS? When there are tools, like we talked last week a little bit about publish and subscribe in IDF level 2, so why publish ERP records to Infor OS? And MJ did a great job answering this, but I just kind of forced myself to do a little homework and come up with a list of all the benefits you receive by publishing your ERP records to Infor OS, because it opens up your ERP data to participate in a much wider world where pretty much the sky's the limit. Your records can end up in the data lake, the data fabric. Burst data analytics can then be run over that data. Of course, Infor AI can then can go on a training quest on that data. And of course, there's a lot of details there, as I alluded in the first session, but the opportunity is there for those things, provided, you've set them up and you've done the right things. IDM documents can end up in IDM, and they can then be linked through the context widget viewer to records in XA. The mobile apps, if there's notifications or alerts and that kind of thing. They'll show up in the mobile app, Infor Go in particular. Also, workflows can be generated, set up for alerts, and then you also can participate in the wonderful world of drillbacks throughout Infor OS. So that's why you'd want to publish ERP records to Infor OS. All right, let's talk about the new Infor OS portal. It is the new face of cloud multi-tenant Infor OS. Okay, so the multi-tenant Mingle portal is definitely migrating to the Infor OS portal, and this will be effective for everyone April 30th, 2024. That's when the MT multi-tenant Mingle portal will be retired. Now, they've been announcing this for about a year now, so we've had plenty of time to prepare. I did watch some additional information. If you're using the Mingle APIs, you actually have till October of this year to stop using those APIs. But as far as the interface, that becomes the official interface, the new Infor OS portal at the end of April of this year. What were the main goals for this migration? Enabling working smarter. So the workspaces are even better than the home pages, and you do have an improved user experience with the navigation pane and the multi-tabs and whatnot. I did want to bring your attention, there's an excellent MP4 video presentation that discusses the details of this migration. That's attached to this KB article, 2277419. So 2277, that number again, 2277419. There we go. Okay, excellent MP4 video, highly recommended. Okay, so what are the highlights of the new Infor OS portal? The app launcher has been replaced with a navigation menu on the right side of the screen. The navigation menu allows access to configurable workspaces, and again, replacement for home pages. A workspace catalog is available that Infor makes available, and they're defined by role. Those are the available ones. Multiple tabs along the top of the frame that you're working in, which is really nice. That's probably my favorite feature in the new OS portal. There's access to recently closed areas. The in-context widget area can be expanded, and even the in-context widget area, 0.7 should say area, can be popped out. So let's take a quick look at that. All right. So Infor has been more than fair about this. Let me do a little bit bigger. Okay, they've had this try the new OS portal for a while now, and so it'll just relaunch your Infor OS with the new portal graphical user interface. So I can come over here, and these are the workspaces. There's different applications I can go into. There's plenty more, obviously. I'll go into OS. Then OS has a whole bunch of stuff that you can go into as well. There's document management, et cetera, et cetera. Let me go into one more thing here. How about CPQ analytics? Remember, this is based on Burst. So notice I already have multiple tabs along the top here. I have Infor OS, I have CPQ analytics, and then also on the side here, this widget viewer area can be expanded, it can be shrunk. It's up to you. It can actually disappear entirely if I can get my mouse to behave. Okay, you can also use this button here and pop out your widget viewer area, and it'll pop out into a separate window. So just wanted you to see those kind of things. I do like this navigation pane. Originally, I thought it was a pain, but now I like it a lot. I like the fact that I can get to home pages or workspaces, bookmarks, and applications so easily. But I love the multi-tabbed approach that I can now do. All right, so let me get back to PowerPoint. All right, talk about data flows. Data flows are definitely dynamically powerful. Last week I said workflows are wonderfully powerful. Yes, I'm a fan of alliteration. So another very powerful tool available in Infor OS, Ion Connect. Ion Desk includes a very nice, very high-powered data flow modeler, very similar to the workflow modeler. You set up the basic flow chart, and it works just really great. I like it. Okay, so data flows are a sequence of activities that send and receive documents. So typically, one side of the workflow would be your ERP, the other side would be like an Infor Edge application or some other software or database destination. Data flows are definitely event-driven. So typically for us with our IBMI ERPs, that means we've published a record from our ERP. And then once the data flow is triggered by ION, then the next step in the data flow is triggered automatically. So each data flow starts and ends with one or more connection points. And of course, typically one of those would be your ERP. Okay, here's an example, real life example. So the need here was a basic data flow to allow Infor XA and then Infor Cloud CPQ/EQ to communicate and integrate via BODs. No additional requirements, pretty simple. XA can publish BODs, CPQ/EQ in the cloud can consume those BODs, and then there's one BOD, a process sales order BOD, that EQ, CPQ can send back to XA, and that'll become a customer order in XA. So this is a pretty straightforward one. Notice there's two nodes, though, two activities for XA. One point XA is publishing, the other one's XA is receiving. All right, this is a pretty straightforward data flow. Here's what I thought you'd like to see. Pretty simple, but it's cool and it's really useful. So how did that CPQ analytics tool that's powered by Burst, how does it get its data? So this shows what's happening. The EQ, the cloud EQ, is sending a certain set of BODs, and they're being ingested, I like that term, ingested by the data lake. So that's what was running behind the scenes. That was something we had to set up to get CPQ analytics to work, was to get this data flow going and specify the list of BODs. And now whenever I create quotes and update quotes and convert quotes to orders and all that activity gets ingested by the data lake because of this data flow, assuming the data flow is active. Okay, here's a much more complicated data flow. In this case, we're integrating Infor XA and Infor IQM. And in this case, each of the BODs that XA was publishing has its own branch. And the reason that was done, thank you, MJ, by the way, was to do some XSLT mapping. And of course, that's a very powerful feature of data flows and this whole data flow modeler. I won't get into the details too much there, but just know data flows, like workflows, they can become as robust and multi-branched as you need them to. Okay, so let's take a look over here. All right, so go here. I'll just show you real quick couple of the actual data flows. You saw the samples, so nothing special here, but ION Connect and data flows. You can see I have 9. And this is going to bring up the data flows. It's doing its Elasticsearch. And these will be the data flows. You'll be able to see the modeler tool a little better. But that's what's going on here. Again, we have the data flow. So let's see. Let's do the one I have to CPQ cloud. So there it is. Whoop, clumsy. There we go. So there, again, real simple. Here's all the options I had. In this case, we didn't have to do anything real tricky. I mentioned that there's a list of BODs, and this is listing now all the BODs that XA is sharing with the cloud EQ CPQ. Okay, and then cloud EQ CPQ is then sending back the BODs in its list. And again, I mentioned there's only one, the process sales order BOD that becomes a customer order in XA. So real simple data flow, but if I needed to get some filtering and routing-based content, if I wanted to add some extra XSLT mapping, I could even kick off a workflow from a data flow. There's just a ton that I can do. Okay, IMS connection points. Let's talk about those. All right, so this is a new type of connector, at least for our particular part of the world, the IBMI ERPs, these ION messaging service connection points. So in the past, to connect, if there was a cloud element involved in a data flow, you needed the enterprise connector. And now the IMS connector is, in my opinion, even better connector to work with. You'll see why here in a second. So an IMS connector, like other connectors, it allows applications to integrate with ION, but it's using the rest APIs, and REST APIs typically are JSON based. They don't have to be, but typically they are. So REST APIs, and this is, of course, it's a big theme. If you're at Empower 2023, you heard Ross Freeman, you heard Phil Joseph, you heard Robert Russell, probably you heard MJ. I didn't get to attend any of MJ's sessions talk about REST APIs. Okay, so the IMS connector doesn't require direct access to an application's database, hence point 4, it's called a loosely coupled connector. It does make integration easier. Very strong authentication in IMS connectors. They can authenticate with secure HTTPS, OAuth 1.0, or ION API. So very, very secure. So is IMS available now? Well, yeah, if you're at release 10 and you're above this particular client build, if you're a person that diligently applies client builds to environments, then you would know that this one's like ancient history. This is way back in release 10. And so thank you to the person that diligently updates my test environments at ISE with the latest client builds. So yeah, this one's definitely getting back there in age because we're up to well into the 20s now. Also, there is a server PTF, and to find out more about that, KB article 2253707, 2253707. The IMS functionality is not available in release 9.2. Okay, now here's the good news. Using the IMS connector via the ION API functionality, the enterprise connector is no longer required, which is great. So if you're a person that's like trying to build your own custom integration to IQM, let's say, on your own virtual machine, and you're doing the EC installation, in that case, you still need the enterprise connector to talk to IQM at the present time, but there are situations where IMS is used instead, and I'll explain that in just a second. Okay, the enterprise connector, of course, consumes additional resources. It has to be on its own server, its own virtual server, and there's cost to implement and to use. So all that is no longer required with IMS. Whoops, I did say I would talk about the two places that I've seen IMS used so far is the Cloud EQ CPQ application, and then also if you're running EAM in the Hexagon Cloud, Hexagon is now using the IMS to talk to. So let's see here. So those are the two cases that I'm aware of at the present time where IMS. So I'm hoping that we'll be seeing a lot more of IMS. So yeah, so here I am. I have a IMS connection point, and this is set up in my XA environment. I have a system link destination that is invoking all the authentication and whatnot that's needed. And this is an IMS connection point. So that data flow I showed you. And if I do this, then this should just come through just fine. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, so my IMS connection point, really nice. It hardly goes boo at all. It just works. So I love the fact that the Cloud CPQ EQ integration is now using an IMS connection point. And again, the other place I see this is if you're integrating with EAM in the Hexagon Cloud. All right, ION API. So this is real cutting edge stuff. You owe it to yourself to educate yourself on REST and REST APIs and API gateways and that kind of thing, because these are coming down the pike. They're really nice, and they're basically not just industry standard, but worldwide standard. It's just the way things communicate these days. The vast majority use REST APIs all the time when you go on Instagram or Facebook or Amazon or anything like that. Okay, so what in the world are REST APIs? So they're an interface that computer systems can use to exchange information securely. So let's define a few of the acronyms. API is an application programming interface, and it's defining the rules that have to be followed for the communication to take place, such as determining which clients get access to which internal resources. So very important, the API gateway is kind of like a traffic cop pointing the requests coming from the client at the various resources if that particular client is allowed access to that resource. REST means representational state transfer. Some of you may know SOAP. This is an alternative to that. And again, like I said before, they're mostly JSON based, and it's a architecture. So REST is an architecture that imposes conditions on how an API should work. And an API is already defining the rules for communication. So you can see how these go together to form REST APIs. And if you have a web service that uses REST APIs, that's called a RESTful web service, not because it's snoozing on you. It's probably doing a lot of work, but because it's using REST APIs. Okay, and real quickly how these work. A client could be a web browser, an application in a web browser. It could be a mobile device app, etc. It'll send a hopefully properly formatted request to the server. The server authenticates and confirms, yeah, that client has the right to make that request, whether it's a read request, update request, create request, or delete request. The server receives the request and processes it internally, and then the server then returns a response to the client, okay, that has the information that says whether or not the request was successful, and then also includes any information that the client requested, like on a read type request. If this sounds a little bit like System Link, it is, but it's a universally utilized version of communication. Okay, so why does any of this matter? The overwhelming trend today, and I should emphasize overwhelming, organizations are definitely modernizing their large legacy monolithic applications into smaller individual microservices. That's the way of the world. And I know our Compass team, as MJ I'm sure can attest, is doing a great job of starting to bring, or they've been working for a while, but bringing our IBM i ERPs into this world in this type of model. So they're doing some great work, laying some great groundwork, and I know we'll see the fruits of their labors in the coming years. So microservices are loosely coupled. You may remember the IMS connector was a loosely coupled connector, so hopefully some connections are being made in your head. They're scalable, they're highly available, and they're resource efficient. This stuff works. Like I said, the whole world's using these, so these things are getting taught in all the technical colleges and universities. So this stuff is being utilized, millions of, if not billions of times a day. REST APIs, notice point 3, are industry known and used. So if you heard Phil Joseph at Empower 2023, he said, I think System Link's better than REST APIs, honestly. And I agree with him. I love System Link. I think it's a great architecture. It was genius from Apex Inc. and then later, Infor XA, to have developed that and expanded it into the great tool that it is today. However, as Phil said, they're not teaching System Link at your local community college, your local state university, the technical schools, Texas Tech, Georgia Tech, all these technicals. They're not teaching System Link. They're teaching REST APIs. They're very simple and they're standardized. So that's an important point. Okay, so I have some screen captures here. You can see the APIs that are available for your tenant in the Ion API gateway. And just a little bit of getting into the weeds here. I've tried not to do that in these webinars, but here's just an example of some JSON from a put operation that Infor EQ can send out. So this is the actual JSON for that particular request. All right. I don't really have anything to demo here. I thought these screen captures would be sufficient, but I needed to introduce this because this is super important going forward. Ross Freeman, Phil Joseph, Robert Russell, 3 things at Empower 2023: REST APIs, Infor OS, and then Interform. And we'll be talking about Interform in a minute. Okay, contextual widgets are widgets that publish relevant information to a user. A widget is a small single-purpose application. It either gives you at a glance data or information, or it gives you quick access to interactive functionality. And then there's contextual widgets that communicate with the main application frame in Infor OS, and they can publish relevant information to the user based upon what the user is seeing and doing in the application frame. So depending on what application they're in, they could be in XA, LX, or System 21, inside of System I Workspace Anywhere, inside of Infor OS. You click on a particular record, and the context widget will display the relevant information. Oh, whoa. Okay. All right. So there's a smart panel to the right, and we'll take a look at that. I've kind of hinted at this. Matter of fact, when I was showing you the new Infor OS portal, I said how the smart panel can expand or you can contract it. That's what I was talking about. So you can access smart panel content using the toolbar on the right of the Infor OS screen. This content, what's available there depends on the current application. And then there's a widgets icon on the smart panel, and you can so what it does as a user, it displays the predefined group of widgets associated with your application. So you might be in an XA purchase order or a System 21 sales order, whatever you're looking at, you'll see the information from the predefined group of widgets. But just because it's predefined doesn't mean it's etched in stone. Additional widgets can be added to applications, and then you can even customize groups of widgets for applications. So let me show you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. Right. What I'm actually going to do here is I'm used to this using the old layout. So I'm going to cop out here just for a second and go to the old layout. All righty. No problem. I know who I am. Right. Okay, entering my password in front of 100 people. Okay, how about that? I managed to do it right. Okie dokie. Yep, so we still have to set up a single sign-on for Infor OS because we haven't. It's making me sign in the System My Workspace to show XA, so no problem. That's to be expected. Here's the widget over here. Now, because I'm using the old interface, it's not flexible as far as expandable and shrinkable. Okay, so, but let me show you this. So if I go to, I mentioned purchase orders, so I think I'll stick with that theme. Purchase orders. All right, so I'm bringing up purchase orders. Of course, I work with XA. Obviously, LX and System 21, you got the same thing going. I'm going to turn off the split screen for now, as much as I love that. But I'm going to go into PO 17. All right, open that up. And then, so here's my context widget. And hey, look at that, there's an image. So here I'm ordering some landscape plants. For those in the South, these are crepe myrtles, kind of the called southern lilacs. If you live up north, they're the equivalent of lilacs. Not nearly as fragrant, but very, very pretty. Okay, but anyway, but notice this image is associated with my PO. And I look at PO 18, which was from the same vendor. So I'm going to hope I see something similar there. All right, so I'm popping up the card file for purchase order 00018, and sure enough, there's another crepe myrtle. So what I want to show you real quick is what I can do is I can very quickly load. So let's go to, okay, order 19, different vendor. So I can actually add, using this context widget, I can add to IDM and set up the link. Let me find something good here. All right, there it is. How about some fresh produce, some squash, fall squashes, okay? For those of you that are produce fans and eating healthy. Okay, so let's look at this. I can set some additional details. So the supplier is 001014. And there's a reason I'm doing this manually, because I'm about to make a big plug for Interform. And the supplier name is T Paint Shop. Okay, amounts. Oh, wow. Okay, we're spending a lot on produce here. 1745. We're eating real healthy here, so that's great. Real quickly, order date. Might as well pick my birthday here. Okay, and delivery date. Hopefully it's on time for my birthday, but maybe not, so I'll give it a little leeway. And I'll choose a department. Okay. upload, and that established a link with IDM. And let's see here, I should, whoops, there it is. So I clicked on that, and I'm kind of going myself, there it is. So now that image is now associated with that particular PO. So if I go into IDM, I'll also see that. There we go. Hey, there it is. So PO 00019, if I go into that, check it out to myself, look at the attributes. So see, it set up the link with the purchase order, and I entered the rest of that manually. But now that I have that link set up, and that's you do that through the business context modeler. And it took me a while to figure that out. I was, you got as someone wanting to move forward with Infor OS in the XA world and LX and System 21, I just had to learn to embrace JSON. I'm starting to love JSON. My love's a little fickle though, because now I'm loving XML a little less, which isn't fair to XML. It's been my favorite for decades. But anyway, I'm starting to embrace JSON. So I used the business context modeler and I was able to establish this link. All right, so now I can set up a link successfully between any record in XA, even multi-key records like customer orders, the company number, the order header type, the order number. You can set up order acknowledgement forms, or bill of ladings, or for shipments, the packing list, invoices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really sharp that this functionality exists to be able to link records in one of our ERPs with a document in IDM and have it all happen dynamically. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about Interform. Okay, Interform is a great example of intelligent output management. I thought maybe we'd have a new acronym, IOM, but I thought I'd be pelted with rocks if I said that, since it's too close to ion. It's also very awkward, IOM. It sounds like you're chanting, so we'll just leave that alone. Interform can run on the IBM System I. That's how someone very kindly installed it at ISE on the IBM System I, which is great. It can run on a Windows server, Linux server, or you can also have it run in the cloud if you want to set up your account with Interform that way. There is a really nice form design tool, drag and drop, WYSIWYG editor. Many, many, many different output formats are supported: barcodes, email, Excel, label printing, laser printing, XML, etc. So, and the XML is very important because it supports that XML output, and then you can do a lot with that. So I still do love XML. Okay. I did mention there's a very powerful forms design tool. And all the feedback I've gotten is you can develop really nice looking, very compact forms fairly quickly once you know what you're doing, once you climb the learning curve. I've seen examples of like purchase orders and customer order acknowledgements and things like that. At least from the XA perspective, the comments are sometimes only 20 characters long, so you end up with a huge list of comments. All of that can be consolidated, different font. You don't have to use the fixed font type. You're not limited to 80 or 132 characters, all that stuff. So you can produce very nice, compact, really nice looking forms. There's also a great SQL tool to enrich forms, to bring in other related data into your forms. So you're not just limited to whatever the spool file generated, and you don't have to use the user exit programs to add to the spool file. You can use this Excel tool. You can generate Excel output and convert Excel files to XML using Interform. It is XML driven, which is very important. And it has a built-in workflow tool. So what you just saw me do to add that image of that healthy produce to that purchase order, you can use a workflow in Interform, and all those values can be entered in. So the first attribute can be the PO number and et cetera. The next one can be the vendor. You don't have to type all that in or add all that in. Really, really nice. I've seen this work. We do have one customer that's got this working with Interform workflows, and it's pretty sharp. There is an excellent manual with diagrams and embedded videos at this link here. It's really, really nice. And like I said, there are embedded a lot of diagrams, which is great, and there's embedded videos. So definitely check this out if you're considering Interform. Again, I heard it multiple times in Power 2023 Infor OS, REST APIs, and Interform. So, all right. So I need to bring all those up. Okay, so we are winding down. Final remarks, Q&A, and closing. Okay, sources for further information. Session 1, I talked about start with Infor or your Infor channel partner. I also mentioned the Infor YouTube channels. Then last week, I mentioned Documentation Central. I showed you that in a little better detail today. Infor You, I did update the URL from last week. Remember, go to that training catalog, and I recommend you start with the self-directed training. Last week, I mentioned mentor-apprentice relationships. Learn whatever you can from whoever you can. Maybe have a divide and conquer approach at your company. One person learns the workspaces, the home pages. Another person focuses on IDM. Another person focuses on Ion Connect, connection points and data flows, that kind of thing. You can do something like that and learn from each other. That's how I learned, like view, subset, sorts, cards, card files, templates in XA, because I just kept asking other people that knew more than I did. All right, so for today, I want to just say real quickly, KB articles, do not overlook KB articles. Some of them do a great job of explaining a topic in detail. That's certainly true in the XA world. And some of them are just like, okay, here was a problem and we fixed it. Here's the PTF if it's a server fix, or it's available on this particular client release. And so it doesn't say much, but others are just great. They're like an encyclopedia, Inforpedia, if you will, kind of like Wikipedia. And then there's also Infor communities. So highly recommend you take a look at the communities that are available out on Concierge. I've joined, let's see, I've joined like 3 or 4 Infor OS related communities. Maybe I'm not logged in. Okay. Anyway, I made it all this way without messing up. But I joined like the Infor OS Data Fabric group. I joined the Mongoose, Infor OS Mongoose for rapid app development. And I joined a couple of others that are in, and then all of our ERPs have communities as well, XALX and System 21. Okay, so I'm basically done. I want to open up the floor to questions, but I know Monica first has some polling questions, so would love to have hear your feedback, get your feedback, and answer these questions. So the polls are open, so go ahead and vote. Thank you very much, and then we'll have Q&A.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, we're very interested in your input on this type of event. Has this event itself been helpful to you covering Infor OS? We'll have a few different questions here that Monica will cycle through. So we appreciate all input to take back to Infor, for us ourselves to process, and just understanding where the general interest levels are in the field. I know we don't have any open questions right now, but a couple of things we get from some of our braver souls out there is, to tell us about what's real in what we showed here. So specifically, through a hybrid approach of the internet enabled, Charles is presenting from his home on the East Coast when he was showing live XA content that's coming from an XA server in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And of course, Infor OS coming through AWS, wherever that server happens to be in the AWS infrastructure. So our goal was to show as much live code as possible. And then what we get another question from customers is what's real in Infor OS? And I'll rewind a little bit to what Charles mentioned early on. Going back with the Ion capabilities, that middleware, that XML handler and traffic cop that's out there, back 8 to 10 years or more. That was really the first piece of Infor OS. We have numerous customers that are using that Ion capability for handling communications to and from Infor ERPs, to Infor applications, and much more common now is to other applications. Bottom line is, if they can share XML data, Ion is a great piece of middleware to handle those communications to and from those different systems. And then, our first brave souls with Infor OS going way back, helped to pave the way for what else is in Infor OS. Definitely seeing more people embracing the workflow and the document management capabilities, also getting into single sign-on. So that all gets opened up depending on how current you are with your ERP system. If we can then you start using the Infor OS as that user experience, leveraging single sign-on. Charles also showed at the end here and discussed Interform tools. And the bottom line is that, that's another great frontier here that we have is ION enabled or Infor OS enabled applications, specifically from third parties that can and will develop Infor OS enabled applications. Something like the smart panels and the context sensitive widgets that we saw, those are relatively new in the Infor OS space. We've seen them in the IDF in the past, in the Infor development framework, as the ERPs get more and more current. So there's just a lot going on here. We really appreciate, Charles, everything you did here to show us today.
Thank you.
So I think we're ticking through our questions here. Charles, any thoughts or additions, or MJ, you as well out there on what we've shared, things we should be considering beyond what we shared, etc.?
Here's the communities that I actually belong to. So, of course, Infor XA, Enterprise Integrator User Group, but there's the three that are Infor OS related. So and there are others. There's some that are dedicated just to burst and artificial intelligence and whatnot. But I just encourage people, especially to go to that self-directed learning. It's free. It's out there on Infor.U. It's great. You get guides to follow along. It explains it. Then it has step-by-step instructions. And that's how I learned to use that business context modeler and to get images loaded through that context widget that are then attached to an XA record, and also they're in IDM. So I literally just learned that recently. I won't say how recently, but it was very recent. So even I'm still learning, trying to pick up new things. Infor OS is just this vast, great ecosystem that just opens up the universe to our IBM-based ERPs. So anything you want to say, MJ, particularly MJ, like to hear a little more about the cool stuff you've been able to do with Interform, where you've been able to pull data out of like AP invoices and stuff, and able to do a three-way match and document capture, that kind of stuff.
Right. So thanks, Charles. Terrific presentation, by the way. We touched upon some of those use cases in Empower, a couple of years ago and last year. But what I wanted to add is the platform, the amount of investment that's going into the platform is mind-boggling. And what I mean by that is the next iteration of Infor OS is going to be, the whole hyper automation strategy. So there is in April 2023, there was a limited availability of RPA and Infor's own Infor document processing. So those capabilities are coming. So to give you an example of, let's say, RPA would be, let's say you're going to do a bank reconciliation. So somebody logs into the bank account, downloads the statement, and then reconciles your cash books, if you will. That entire process could potentially be automated. So that's just one simple example of a hyper automation use case. So investment in the technology today is just going to get better and better in the foreseeable future.
Wow, awesome.
Very good. Thank you, MJ. Our final poll question here is regarding the artificial intelligence options through Infor, and we're seeing good response here as far as interest in that. So we will work with the Infor team, and you can expect to see an opportunity in the future here for an artificial intelligence session. Certainly a big part of where Infor is going, and a big part of where Infor OS can take us. We are, just for all of you who have attended Empower, we will be having kickoff meetings with our planning team next week on February 15th, and we'll be updating the Empower website on a continuous basis between now and September 23rd when we run the event. So there'll be a lot more content coming out about that, and certainly that's a great resource for everybody to see other events that are being run, updates, you name it. So certainly encourage you to go out to that Empower website.
Wow, that's great, Tony. So we anticipate a good bit of Infor OS related content then.
Exactly, exactly. And certainly regarding the ERPs, as they enable more Infor OS connectivity, more ION connectivity, more integration with the embedded applications of workflow and document management and other applications that come out. I mean, there's a tidal wave of activity going on right now about where Infor OS is. And I really liken it to where we were maybe with the IDF and PowerLink 8 or 10 or 12 years ago, of people sitting in the green screen saying, geez, when can I really embrace this? Where's the value of these tools? How can I move to them? We're right on the cusp of really getting well beyond just the ION capabilities to this whole Infor OS user experience, growing really fast.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just want to put a plug in for MJ has done a good number of videos. He did one just a few weeks ago. It was focused on LX, but I watched it as an XA person. It was, obviously I don't use LX on a daily basis, but it was great to see him kind of intermingle, weave in all the tools. So yeah, he was talking about Infor OS, and there was the connection points and the data flows. IDM was involved, the business context modeler was involved, but in the end, a little bit of user exit programming needed to be done in the IDF level 2 enterprise integrator. And I forget what you called that session, MJ. It was kind of like business case, or do you remember what the title for that was? But it was really good, bringing all those tools together.
Sorry, I'm muted. It was a use case that brought all the InfoOS components into in part of a single ecosystem to show how it works. The same use case was also done for XA, by the way. So it was a bank account approval workflow. So if someone changes, the bank account for a supplier, and the person is authorized in the ERP to make that change. But if you want to have an additional level of oversight to see to ensure that it is not a fraudulent change, then what do you do? And how you can leverage the InfoOS stack to help you make that decision. So that's what it was all about, and we did both for LX and XA. That video was made available through Work Out Loud, right? You got it from there, isn't it? It came from the Work Out Loud platform.
Yes, yes.
I'll see if I believe the session that we did, or the presentation that we did at Empower 2023, that is available to the community. So the XA specific presentation is definitely in there.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
You're right. Those sessions are available right on the Empower 2023 website.
Right.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I don't see any questions coming in. So
Tony,
appreciate.
can
Go ahead,
I present a use case really quick, since there's no questions? I don't want to belabor this, but I have an excellent use case that's fresh and up to date. So we have a customer that's integrating cloud-based CPQ suite, which includes enterprise quoting, to XA. And so I showed you that workflow, data flow. I politely chastised someone this morning in an email for mixing up data flow and workflow, and here I am doing it myself. So yes, I'm a hypocrite. But anyway, so the EQ sends the process sales order pod. That's great. So we have the header, we have the line items. But what this customer needed was also to handle special charges. So the Infor professional services team enriched the BOD on the EQ side and added special charge elements, freight and things like that, special color fees, engineering fees, things like that. So anyway, the BOD coming into XA had these extra elements. Well, about 6 months ago, we foresaw this coming, and we requested the Infor XA, or really the Compass group, to create the user area style sheet for the incoming process sales order bod. So MJ and his team very kindly took that on and did that for us, and it's been available for several months now, and it's working beautifully. But here's an example where the bod's coming in from another application. This style sheet there's not much you have to do with it. You do have to do a little bit, and then when you're done with the style sheet, you put it out on the IBM IFS. And then those values come into whatever fields, user fields or secondary extension file fields in XA. And then with a little bit of user exit programming, in this case, the UXP CT1R, end order processing user exit, I'm able to get those values and use System Link to create the special charges. So just a beautiful example of baud enrichment on the EQ side, then the style sheet that MJ and his team put together for user fields, and then System Link or the user exits, and then System Link. Just all these tools together are extremely powerful, and and then they're loving it. It's just a great success. So, and we're looking now to do the same thing with the process requisition baud coming in from EAM. We want to do the same thing. So, thank you for indulging me on that. I just love seeing all these tools come together. System Link, XML, baud enrichment, ION data flows, all of that. So. Thank you for indulging me there, Tony.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. I mean, we talk a little bit about BODs as they're provided from Infor or from the partners, and we all expect those BODs to be enhanced
Yes.
by us, by you. They're designed to be so. So maybe we have 10 data elements and we need 12, or this perfect scenario here of the special charges, right? It's designed to understand that businesses change, businesses are unique. People have unique data sets, all those kinds of things. And I need to share that, still coming from one source of the truth on the system, but how do I then bring it forward into something like Infor OS?
Yep. Great stuff.
Agreed. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for 3 sessions in a row. We hope this has been of great value to you. Charles, fantastic job as always. Certainly appreciate everything you bring to the table.
Thank you so much.
And we hope to see you all soon on future sessions, and certainly at InPower 2024.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Good. Thank you, guys. Bye now.
Thanks, Andrew.